Hey there. If you're a frequent listener to our show, you already know that our show is brought to you by our friends over at Artillery Sports. But what you may not know is that Artillery Sports helps athletes of all types win on and off the course and court. They do this by selling quality, durable, and precision manufactured sports equipment that keeps you in the game, while also using a portion of the profits to provide the funding needed to care for our nation's veterans. With Artillery Sports, it's more than just a game. So head over to artillerysports.com today to buy the quality equipment you need to keep you in the game and to help our nation's veterans at the same time. That's artillerysports.com. Make sure you head on over there today. Oh, and use the code DOCFIRST to get 10% off your first order. Welcome to Documentary First, an inside look at documentary filmmaking. I'm your host and a documentary filmmaker myself, Christian Taylor. I don't know where you are in the world today, but today, this is Wednesday, April 23rd, 2024, and I'm so excited about today's podcast. We're going to jump right in. Today's the 20... Oh, my word.
You said 2024.
I did. We're starting over.
You're a year behind. Right. No, it's fine because it makes me a year younger and I feel better already.
All right, we're not starting over. All right, so today is Wednesday, April 23rd, 2025, and I'm so excited about today's podcast, and this is why. Today I am with my friend Corey Johnson. Really, truthfully, I have to admit up front, I only know him as John Johnson. So if I slip up today and call him John, you'll know why. The world knows him as Corey, so I'm going to try to stick to that. He's been a close friend of mine since 1985. He is, though, however, a Hollywood actor. He's a New Orleans native, and I predict today that it's going to be a really humorous and insightful conversation about his journey from college theater in 1985 to supporting roles in major films like Saving Private Ryan, Hellboy, The Mummy, also his little roles in Band of Brothers, but also culminating in his latest project that I watched last night, and I encourage everybody to watch, the critically acclaimed and historical docudrama September 5. It's on Paramount Plus. You can also find it on other places, including Apple TV. So you may need to pay a little bit for that, but it's totally worth it. Today, we're going to hear some behind the scenes stories from his career, candid reflections on the ups and downs of acting, and hopefully some encouraging advice for you aspiring directors and actors out there. I have really enjoyed his company over the last, couple of weeks as we've been on another podcast that people are going to hear a little bit about called the Movie Rob Minute. It's a new podcast from Minute Rob, who is over in Israel. And we have been walking through this podcast. He does these movie reviews of movies minute by minute. And John and Corey and I were doing minute 135 of Saving Private Ryan for like 5 episodes, something like that. I think I did 2 on my own.
Yeah.
What'd you think about that?
The format is fascinating because especially I wasn't in minute 135, but it was just to be able to talk about it because you understand a little bit about it, but just to pick apart the minutiae of something that was, absolutely brilliant and sort of, it's one of those movies where you go, I remember when this came out.
Yeah.
It's not something like, oh, I caught up with it on television or I watched it and the commercial break sort of killed it. But, no, you remember where you were when it came out. And so it's one of those great movies. And it was just, there's always something interesting to pick apart about it. And, because there's a lot of detail in it. And so, yeah, it's a great concept.
Well, and it was really neat. I mean, Rob is a fascinating guy. He just has studied movies like crazy. He's one of these savants who's just movie nutty, and he just knows so much over so much time. And he's really, really into these things. And
so much respect for the medium as well.
Oh, absolutely. And so much so that we are going to have Rob on our podcast, but we are going to air our podcast that we did on Documentary First. Great. So the things that we did together, they're going to be on the Minute Rub podcast, but we're also going to air them on ours. So that's going to be really cool. I enjoyed it because that minute that we did, I think is a crucial minute in the film. We were very fortunate, I think, to get that minute.
Yeah.
And it was great because it was a very favorite minute of yours.
Yeah.
Right. And, it was right after that. So it's sort of,
right.
we were able to talk about a really pivotal piece. And I loved hearing your take on so much. You just knew so many people in the film, and that was so great. Your career has just spanned such a long period of time. You know so many people, and you've learned so many things. And I hope that you can share a lot of that with us today.
No, I'm not going to share anything. It's all going to be in my book.
You should write a book. You actually should.
Are you kidding? I can't spell my name. I'm not going to write a book.
You can talk, though. You can talk a lot.
Yeah, I can talk.
And
if it's an audio book, I'd be fine. But
actually, I was going to ask you. So we were talking earlier about. I told you I watched September 5, and you said, was it good? And I said it was absolutely amazing. And I said, have you watched it? You said absolutely not. I don't watch my things. And I said, what? That's crazy. And I was going to ask you, don't you listen to your things? But I didn't ask you. Do you not listen to your stuff?
No, well, what do you mean listen to my stuff?
You do audio, you narrate stuff all the time.
I've done something, but I don't actively seek them out, I guess is the point. I have literally been in a hotel room filming something somewhere in the world, and I would turn on CNN and I would flick through and find all of the English-speaking channels. So I had a rota of things, because when you come in, after you've been filming, the last thing you want to do is sort of go, and now I'm going to work on the role tomorrow. You just decompress and you get away, and I turn the TV on, and sometimes I'm watching a foreign language that I don't understand and just sit there and stare at stuff. And, but I'm watching this documentary, and I'm literally watching it, and I'm going, I know this is going to happen. And then I went, oh my God, that's me. That's my voice. I've been listening to myself for like 10 minutes. I didn't recognize my own voice, which was great, because I didn't have a problem with what the guy did.
That's really cool.
Yeah,
That's
so
really cool.
usually I go, that's terrible. He stressed the wrong word. That's bad writing. I bet they I bet they put the comma after that word, and they just read the comma.
Oh, you're better than me, because I totally change the script when I see like grammar mistakes and stuff like that.
I do as well. Listen, I had someone who discussing something in space, and they said something about how it was. I mean, I can't remember what it was, but it was more. And the sentence that ended the thing was way, way more than they thought. And I went, can I end that sentence with the word dude? Because, we're saying way, we're talking about space. Can't we say astronomically more, or incredibly difficult, or do you have to use way twice? No, the producer wants it. Oh, okay. All right, cool.
It's very difficult when you're an intelligent person and you're reading a script.
Awkward.
Yeah. Okay, we're getting off topic, and it's all my fault.
Get off topic.
I know, and this is going to happen.
Yeah. So you're going to have to rein me in.
Well, and the problem is, you get two of us that have to be reined in. We're going to be in trouble. Anyway, let me try to get it back on track. So, Can you believe it? It has been 40 years since we met, and we're in college together. Wow. I mean, I can't believe it. Truthfully, we were talking about my son is 35.
Yeah.
35. Yeah. I still feel like it's been, when I think about when we met, do you remember when we met?
I don't. I do remember this. I know, like, I graduated at the beginning of May.
Yeah.
Something like that. And we had only known each other for about a month.
I think that's probably right. It's maybe a little longer.
Maybe a little longer, but I for some reason I'm trying to remember, and I cannot remember how we met.
I'll tell you.
I can't believe that you were in school for like a year or two in the drama department, and I was just like.
So here's the thing. I was a freshman. I was a little baby, and you were a senior.
Yeah.
And, in that world, in that theater world at Catholic University, usually underclassmen are nothing. Like you get no time on, anything. You're working in the Callan Theater, if you're working at all. You're mostly in class, and you're doing your own little things. And even most of the underclassmen aren't doing anything on stage. It's usually the MFA students, right? And they're usually the ones doing everything. You got a lot more time than most, because you were very good, but most people aren't on stage. And the younger, younger students are usually stagehands. And so by the spring of my freshman year, I was working on the spring musical as a stagehand. And you were in the spring musical.
Yeah. I can remember we did something about, they made me dance in the opening
You
number, and
were
I
dancing.
kept saying, please don't make me
Yeah, I
dance,
know.
please. And it was just like, he kept saying, if you smile, they won't notice. And how bad I am? And it was like, yeah, they'll notice, believe me.
And
But
wasn't it like Dietz was the director or something? I don't know, some guy that
no, it was Roger
doesn't.
Riggle.
Okay, Roger Riggle. And then, and I
What a
don't even
great
know,
name.
it was like a combination musical of different things. It wasn't
Yeah, it
even
was a
really
review.
a
It was
review.
the Hartke 50th anniversary review.
Yes,
Yeah.
and so it wasn't even that great, I don't think.
No, it wasn't. There was some fun stuff in it.
Yeah, but we had a great,
Sketches.
great time. It was really,
Yeah.
really fun. There were a lot of other people. Army Schultz was in it.
Was it?
Uh, yep, I think so. Kyle Prue.
Kyle was in
Um,
it. Army wasn't, because Army was doing his own show.
okay.
Army was
He
working
was
on his MFA
around.
show. He was around. We were roommates.
Okay.
Um, he was working on his MFA show. He wasn't in the review.
Yeah.
I think the last play, God, I'm trying to remember the last play we did. I can't remember what the plays were. I used to know them like the back of my hand. I remember in my junior year, Joe Lewis directed Blithe Spirit, which I stage managed. I fell asleep through half of it. I used to call the show up in the booth like Star Trek. I'd say, fire phasers, fire photon torpedoes, shields down, bring the curtain in, shields down, fire photon torpedoes, do all this stuff. It was great.
Well, and let's talk about Army Schultz for a second. I mean, we had
Okay.
some really amazing people that graduated from
Well,
our
yeah,
program. Like
yeah.
Catholic University in the 80s was a really big theater school.
Well, in the 60s, in the
Oh, yeah.
30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, it was a known school. But what happened is I don't know if it was the group theater or training in New York or that changed things, but Catholic used to be sort of a incubator for off Broadway and Broadway shows. They would start things in Washington D.C. and they would take them on tour. I mean, Olney Theater was an arm of Catholic University.
Right.
There were people like James Waring and Joe Lewis and designers and directors. I mean, Joe Malziner was a designer at Catholic. We're going back. These are ancient, old people. This is a previous generation of
Right.
theater people. None of these people would have worked in film,
Right.
And as it came into the 40s, 50s, and 60s, you started getting people like John Peelmeyer, John Voight, Chris Sarandon, Susan Sarandon, who, Mercedes McCambridge, who were theater actors,
Yep.
who went to Catholic, who became film actors.
Yes.
Catholic didn't teach them how to work on film. Catholic taught them how to act in a way, or gave them an opportunity to act, and then they moved on and took things to their next level. And I think sometime in the 60s and 70s, Catholic's influence started to wane, as did a lot of schools like that. You'll always have Yale, you'll always have Juilliard, you'll always have some other programs like you go ACT and SMU, which had their own theaters there.
Right.
But theaters where, like Carnegie Mellon, where you learned how to act, and the program itself was like they have the Yale Mafia. The Yale
Right.
Mafia exists today. You go to Yale, there are people who went to Yale, they'll hire you. Catholic
Right.
doesn't have that. There's no Catholic Mafia. You just go there and it's a
Well,
good program.
a lot of things have changed since then,
Yeah.
and one of the big drivers and one of the reasons it was so good then was Father Hartke. And,
Yeah. Yeah.
Father Hartke
A
was
lot
a
of fun.
force,
Yeah.
and he was a major force in Hollywood. I don't know
Yeah.
how that started, but I mean,
I
he brought
I
Helen Hayes into our program in some way. She
Right.
was very
Well,
involved.
I don't know how he got her involved in the program, but again, she did at one point she did the Eugene Long Day's Journey. She did it at the Hartke. She did it in Washington.
Right.
Possibly because she wanted to, possibly because she knew Father, and the combination of the two things sort of made that work. It's kind of remarkable how they managed to do a play about that form of addiction at Catholic, because I can remember someone telling me about Father directing a play in like the 30s or 40s, where at the end of the third act, a woman has an abortion, and
Mm.
Father said that no, 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 no. And so he got a medical book, and he opened up the medical book, and he looked up abortion, and he went, okay, I've got it. You find out on opening night that at the end of Act 4, the big reveal is that she had an appendectomy. And it was like, you go, you just looked up abortion and found the next medical procedure that was in the book. Because he said, I can't say that. I can't, as a priest, I can't say that, and yeah, he was a force.
He
I
was
kind of,
still there when I mean, those were his last days, and that's I mean, it
yeah,
was like I graduated in '88, you graduated in '85, and
85. Yeah.
we were there at a short time together. It was,
Mm-hmm.
maybe 6 to 8
Mm-hmm.
weeks, but you were from New Orleans. I
Was
was
from
from Laurel,
Laurel.
Mississippi,
Yeah.
not far away, and I would go to New Orleans all the time. And so for
Yeah.
me, it really connected me because you were one of the only people I knew from the South. And I
Yeah.
remember watching your dad on television whenever I
Oh.
would go to New Orleans. So
Mm,
I knew who he was. And
mm,
I just really felt bonded to you. And you were so kind to me. I mean, you were a senior that I really looked up to.
mm.
You were an amazing actor, and you were very kind. And so I loved you from the beginning. And and so when you left Catholic, you graduated and you went to London. You went to the Central Academy of Dramatic Arts,
Yep.
and and we kept in touch somehow for a while,
Miraculously, yeah, for a little bit. Yeah. Yeah.
even though
Yep.
I think I've said this before. You found me in the costume department because you just knew the phone number and you called. I happened to be in there. That was fun. And then I lost you for a really, really long time until I was
Yeah.
in Las Vegas one random time years ago. And my husband and I are packing. I'm in the bathroom, and all of a sudden I hear this voice that I know. And your voice to me, I will never forget. It's so unique. And I come out, and there you are.
Mm-hmm.
It's Band of Brothers, and it's the scene where you are telling the GIs they have to stop feeding,
Mm-hmm.
the Holocaust victims that they've
Mm-hmm.
discovered. And I just froze. I
Mm,
couldn't believe it.
mm.
I had found you. And so I immediately went home and I wrote your agent. I looked up on IMDb, and because I'd been acting by that time now in film and stuff. And I wrote her, and I was like, please, give this message to him. and
Yep.
and we started communicating again.
Mm-hmm.
So and then when I just stumbled upon the girl who wore freedom, the first person I reached out to was you, and
Yeah.
said, what do you think about this idea? Can you
Mm-hmm.
help me? And asked you to narrate our first trailer. So if people go to the girl who wore freedom on our main page and you watch our 4-minute trailer, that's your voice.
Yeah.
It will always be there. And you've encouraged me from the beginning. You've been
Well,
one of my
because
cheerleaders.
I mean, if you know who my dad was, you know that documentaries were a big part of what I watched when I was growing up.
Yeah.
And as much as you get into film and filmmaking and acting in front of a camera, the genesis of all that is always going to be the first thing you saw. And the first thing I saw was my dad doing that
Wow.
in his way.
Yeah.
And so that was, that's, I mean, the meat of my career is narrating documentaries.
How
People
many
ask
do you
me,
think you've done by this time?
hundreds. I
Mm.
mean, I in the fall I did, I was thinking about it. I think I did 10 in the fall because I did a series, and it used to be a lot more, but there would be years where I would get 2 or 3, 5 or 6 part series, and this has
Wow.
been going on for 10 years. So I'm figuring, I mean, I've done things like animal mummies and strangest things on Earth, and so I would say in the hundreds.
What is the favorite one you've done?
Um, it was there are a couple. One I did was about Hurricane Sandy, and I
Okay.
remember because it was a hurricane and it was kind of devastating. I remember because I knew a lot about hurricanes and I knew what they could do and I knew where the documentary was going to go. And so I was, a step ahead of it, but I wasn't bored. I was keeping up with it. And it was like 3 hours long. There was another one I did called World War II from Space, which,
Interesting.
yeah, because they just showed, like, they go out into space and show troop movements and where the Germans were And you don't know this at the time, but you go, here's where the Germans were, here's where the French were. If the Germans had gone like that, they would have decimated France, but they went like this, and so France lived to fight, and all these kind of things. And
Interesting.
but another one that was really cool was I did one in 2019, right before COVID. That was the 30th anniversary of Tiananmen Square.
Mm.
And I remember talking to these guys, and they were going, "Yeah, it's really interesting because we really can't find anything. We had trouble finding things. We found things from the 80s and 89 about Tiananmen Square, but we couldn't really find anything before then." And I went, just offhand, I went, "Oh, God, I wish you'd have said something because my dad went to China in 1972 and did a documentary." And they went, "He what?" He went to China. He shot all kinds of footage. It's like a travelogue about China. Shot the Great Wall, I'm sure he shot Tiananmen Square, shot the People's Hall. He had a banquet in there. And I told him this, he shot a woman having a goiter removed from her throat. They put 4 needles in her neck, and
Oh
she was
my
awake through
God.
the whole thing. They cut her open, took it out. She was talking
Oh,
during the story. It was amazing. And we looked it up on YouTube, and I found the documentary. I said, "There it is." And they went, "Oh my God, this is
that's
incredible."
insane.
Yeah, it was amazing. That was pretty
Did they
cool. So
use it?
I remember now they couldn't because they would have had to go to the station. They would have had to get permission, and they said we're like weeks away from
Uh,
releasing, so we can't. Yeah,
That's
yeah,
crazy.
yeah,
Well, that's amazing. Well, going back to, kind of when we met,
yep,
you were in the theater then, and
yeah.
you like you said, you started listening to your dad. Your dad, let's talk about him. He started in documentaries. He was a newscaster,
Well, yeah,
right? And
he
so,
started as a journalist. He wrote.
journalist.
He was a writer. He started writing on a paper, and he did everything for the paper. And there was a guy, a journalist on the newspaper named Hap Glaudy, who was a brilliant writer, quite very much what you would imagine a 40s newspaper man to be. He wore, check coats and bow ties, and he was loud, and he went to the track, and he drank a little, and he was just a crazy guy. Uh, he gets a job as a sportscaster on a nascent television station in New Orleans. And they were the third station in a 3-station market for years. And so Hap Glaudy would set off fireworks on the air. He'd have a skeleton next to him wearing a suit, and he'd, say happy birthday to this person, and, this guy's, and he'd talk about the fairgrounds. He'd have a program from the fairgrounds. They didn't have graphics then. They'd have a camera on his program, and he'd have things circled first, second, third, and how much they paid. And he'd had it written on his program, and he'd fold it open. And it was just like it was flying by the seat of your pants, just improvisational. But he was great, and he was interesting because sports then was, it was local.
Right.
Everything was local. He said you had to big up the high school kid, you had to big up the college team. But he recommended to this guy, he said, "You got to hire this kid. He's a good writer. I don't know what he's going to do, but you got to hire him." And so the general manager calls my dad in. He says, "Look, I've read your stuff. It's really good. What do you want to do?" And he said, "Well," he said, "I think, we'll see. But I mean, I just want to talk about New Orleans." And they created the idea that my dad would deliver an editorial opinion every day, 5 days a week, uh, about local things, about regional things, about, national, international things, and how they affected New Orleans. And he said, it's a dialogue. The first one, he said, we're going to have a dialogue between us and the city about things that affect us and the city and the world and the country and on and on. He did it for almost 40 years. It was the longest running editorial opinion in broadcast journalism history.
Wow.
And it'll always be because people don't want an editorial opinion anymore. They
They don't
don't
do that
need it.
anymore.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's not about that now. It's about having an opinion in another way. It's about being outrageous and
Yeah.
making people talk.
Yeah.
Not that my dad couldn't be outrageous, but he did it in a very sophisticated way.
Yeah. It was a more thoughtful
It
conversation,
was more
really.
thoughtful. He was more
Well,
philosophical rather than outrage.
right. And so what then, you grew up in sort of that, stew, that milieu, but what
Yeah.
made you want to be an actor?
I wish I could tell you. I have no idea. I remember I broke my knee playing football. one spring, and I was in the high school band, so I was playing timpani and glockenspiel and triangle and all this stuff um, in the musical. And I just remember at one point looking and going, I can do that. I know I can do that better than they're doing it. Not that they were doing it badly, but it was just like, it's not about, it wasn't for me at the time. I remember thinking, it's not about, oh, look how clever I can be. It's just all you have to do is take those words and be able to communicate something to the audience. It's like, it'll be funny. This joke will be funny. You don't have to say, here comes a joke, here comes a joke, here's the punchline, and hope they laugh. You just have to say something. You take a little beat, and then you say something else, and they laugh. And it's like, that's how it works. It was more intuitive and instinctive rather than thought out and considered. And so when the instinct of that took hold, I remember going to a woman who was going to come. She had been at school, she went away for 2 years, and she was coming back. And I found her and I said, "You're coming back next year, aren't you?" And she said, "I am indeed." I said, "I'm going to audition for you. I'm going to be an actor." And she went, "Okay," and walked away. And I was like, "Well, you made an impression there. That's good, you know."
So what year was that?
I was 16. I had just turned 16. I remember I broke my knee on May the 13th. It was a Friday. I was supposed to turn 16 on May the 17th, and I would have gotten my driver's license. So I was going, I'm not
Oh,
going to be
wow.
able to do this for 2 months now, you know? And at the time, 2 months seemed like a world.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and now you go, 2 months, who gives
I
a
know.
shit, you know? Sorry,
Perspective.
can I say shit?
Oh, go right ahead.
Okay.
I said worse.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
all right. So you're 16 years old. You decide you're going to be an actor.
No, I just said to that woman, "I'm gonna do it," and here's what she said, "Okay." I was like, "Hey," made a real impression on her. And then, you know how things just sort of, this is, in a way, it's when you know you're supposed to do something. You can take it and you can take the round peg and force it into the square hole, or things just, it's like
Happen.
they reveal themselves.
Yep.
You go somewhere and they reveal. I was in a class, a drama history class, and we were reading about Jason and Medea. And I just remember reading this thing and going, I can say this like, I mean, I wish I had something right here where, you know, when you're reading something and you're 16 and you just go, here it is, and this is what it is, and I'm going to say this, and these are the words on the page, and so I'm going to say it, and that's it. And I said, no, it's more interesting if you say, like, I remember one time he said something about, I'll get but a whiff of sail and I'll be gone. And it was like a whiff of sail. And I just said, that's so evocative. It's just like a puff and I'm out of here, you know? And I just read it like it meant something to me. And because
Mhm.
it did, it meant
Yeah.
something to me, you know? When I was 12, I remember being in study hall and the person in study hall said, do you have anything to do? I said, nope. And everybody laughed. And he went, oh, you don't have anything to do? I said, nope. I said, no homework? I said, nope. He said, you're just hanging out. I said, well, come up here and read. I said, "Excuse me?" He said, "Read. There are a few people who, you know, might wanna listen to something, so read." He gives me The Catcher in the Rye to read.
Ooh.
So I'm reading The Catcher in the Rye, which is, you know, the same thing. You can't read The Catcher in the Rye and just sort of be have, so I'm reading it, and I'm not, like, going, "I'm gonna act this," but I just read
That's
it
a
like,
lot at 12.
it was great. It was great because this was the kind of school I went to. They didn't
Where did you
say,
go?
a school called N Isidore Newman High School in New Orleans.
Okay.
Very good school. Peyton Manning went there. His brother went there.
Hmm.
I'm trying to think of who else went there who would be like outrageously famous. A bunch of, weirdly, you only know the people because of athletics, because that's sort of a universal language. But there are some brilliant lawyers and doctors, and there's an amazing surgeon who works out of, I think, Texas, who was in my year. A very
Hmm.
smart guy. He was a class president our senior year. Smart guy. There's another guy he's a lawyer. He went to Harvard, and I'm sure he's gonna be involved in this case that's coming up with Harvard.
Oh, yeah.
I saw him the other day in London, and I posted a picture on Facebook. I said, "Still the smartest guy in the room. He is
Hmm.
the smartest person I've ever met. Smart, pure just brain power, smart. Smartest guy I've ever met." And, those were the guys, you know, who I was
All
in
right. So
school
you're
with.
reading Catcher in the Rye.
and it just jumps off the page. It just you can't. It would be exactly the same thing when you look at someone and go, "Well, he was born to be a golfer," or "He's just a natural tennis player." It's not like he went, "I want to be really good at tennis." He just went, "This is fun," and you hit the ball a little harder, or you hit the ball a little further, or you put a spin on a shot, or you do something like that. It's an instinct you have. You're not trying to make another person look bad. You're just trying to see how big, how much you can fill out this idea, this thing. Again, you don't know what it is. I didn't know I wanted to be an actor.
You just
You know,
stepped into what came next. So, what
yes.
did come next? I mean,
Well, I just, I was reading drama history, and I read this thing, Jason and Medea, and the woman this is the woman I said, I'm going to audition for you. She went, yeah. She said, you need to audition for me. And I went, all right. Because I was 16. You don't go, yay. You go, all right, it's just cool, whatever. So I went in and I auditioned, and she said, you got to go sing for this guy. And I went, no, I didn't sing. That was the thing. And I got a call from a friend of mine, like the day before they were casting. He said, listen to me. Listen to me. I said, what? He said, she wants to cast you in this play, but you never sang for this man. You have to go in tomorrow morning and sing, because if you can sing, she's going to cast you. And I went, all right. I mean, he knows I can sing, but okay. So I went in and I sang, and they cast me in this little musical about Adam and Eve.
hmm.
And I remember this is who this woman was. The day we were doing a dress rehearsal, and I sat down and I went, I can't do this. I can't do this. I can't do this. I got friends of mine out there who are just going to mock me because I'm doing this.
Hmm.
It's not that they don't understand. They're going to know it's going to be food for them. I can't. And she said, don't you worry about it. Don't worry about it. And they literally told me, she went up to them and she went, this boy is about to do something you can't imagine doing. And so help me God, if you say a word to him about it, I will make sure that you don't graduate from this school. She just threatened him. I mean, threatened them within an inch of their lives. And I mean, they sat there like this through the whole play.
What
You
was
know,
so embarrassing?
about what? About doing it?
No. What were you going to be embarrassed about?
Nothing. Just putting yourself out.
So, I remember
Look,
the thing.
are you telling me that before you set foot on stage, you're going, yeah, piece of cake. Here we
No,
go.
no, I do remember the only time I really remember that, in
It,
my situation, I remember when I was 10 and I was in, I was 10. I went to see
mm-hmm,
West Side Story at the
mm-hmm,
high school,
mm-hmm,
and I was so impressed, and I was
mm-hmm,
like, "I'm gonna be an actress," I
mm-hmm,
remember. And truthfully, that never left me. And I had the good fortune to be a quote unquote such a bad kid that my parents sent me to boarding school in New York. And that boarding school happened to have this incredible theater program run by a New York actor who just was brilliant. And he originated the role of, in Sheer Madness, of the inspector.
mm-hmm,
Up in Lake George Dinner Theater, which was another, amazing dinner theater that David Eastwood started, and he was running this theater program. And my sophomore year, I auditioned, I think, starting my freshman year. My sophomore year, I started doing crew. I did makeup. And
mm-hmm,
then the first thing I did, I think, was maybe it was Raisin in the Sun. I think
mm-hmm,
Raisin in the Sun. I was in that one. And just like you said, I just kind of started auditioning and getting these little roles.
mm-hmm,
And then it was something that I couldn't not do. It
mm-hmm,
just would not leave me. There's this, and I still get it to this day. I walk onto that stage and something happens in me. It's the way
mm-hmm,
it smells, it's the way it feels,
mm-hmm,
it's the ghost light. It's I don't know, there's just something about it.
mm-hmm,
But I remember this one time in Mornings at 7, I had to wear this hat, and it was this big floppy hat, and I was so embarrassed. I couldn't do it, and I told the director, I was like, "Neil, I can't do it. I can't wear it." And he looked at me and he's like, "You have to trust me. You have to trust me. I am never going to do anything that is going to embarrass you. You have to trust me." Now, the character, unbeknownst to me, was a funny character. but I was just being the character. And so he knew better than I did that the look of the character was part of this funny character in a sense, and that was a good thing that would, enhance the character. He gave out, awards that the school voted on. And so my little awards sitting back here were for like the best supporting actress I got for that award. They're still my favorite awards from high school because of that director who taught me to trust the director. I learned so much from those young ages because you are like so embarrassed to begin, even though it's something that you really want to do. You have to fight through a lot of a lot of your own stuff in the beginning, I think, to get over those hurdles.
Yeah, you
I'm
do. You do
excited.
because there's no it's not like you go, well, there's a path, there's a clear path for it. There is no clear path for this.
No.
All it is, it's a war of attrition. You
Well,
do
and I
it.
don't think you know what you're gonna battle against. Like, when you
No.
start, you don't know what's inside of you, and I
Right.
think it's discovery of what you have to battle inside of you,
Right.
because as an actor, you encounter the people that you are inhabiting, and
Mhm.
as you encounter them and you study them, it uncovers what's in you.
Yeah.
And whatever you're called to be in that role, you have to deal with that person that you're inhabiting, but it also you
Yeah.
have to deal with what's in you,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And what
Yeah.
it brings
Well,
out.
yeah. No, a lot of times it's exactly like the way, I got started. There are things that are in front of you and they reveal themselves.
Right.
A lot of times you can go searching for something that you're determined is there in a character and you'll never find it. But the things you find during the journey are what make the character the character. So, I mean, it's like what you said, how's it been 40 years? It's been 40 years. Who would have thought? Who would have thought we'd be sitting here right now doing this? You
I
can't
don't
predict it. No
know.
one can
No,
say. And in 40 years, you and him are going to be on the phone. He's going to be in London. You're going to be in Chicago. And, that's what's going on. And you would have said,
no
there's
way.
no way. There's
No
no
way.
rational
Nope.
line that leads to that. And you go, that's right. That's why it'll probably happen.
I would not have been surprised that we would have been friends. Like, I mean, it's crazy, crazy that we were really close. We really were good friends, at least to
Mm,
me. And
mm,
I really felt like we could be friends forever. And
mm.
so that wouldn't surprise me. Um, but I didn't expect you to live in London the whole time. Like,
Neither did
I
I.
really felt like you would have come. You're so New Orleans. Like, I
Mhm.
really would have expected you to come home or been in New York. Really,
Yeah,
I thought you would have been in New York and you would have been a stage actor and you would have lived in New York.
yeah.
I just would not have expected you to be in London all these years.
Well, I remember being in London for about, 3 or 4 years when I got back, about 3 years when I got back, and, I looked at kind of what I had made in the last year, and I realized I'd worked on stage, and I did about 2 weeks in a television show, but I worked on stage for about 38 weeks, and I made about 10 or 11,000 pounds, which maybe is about $15,000 in a year.
Mm.
And I thought, this is not going to work at all in any way, shape, or form. This is stupid. I'm not going to do this. And I got a voiceover agent, not because I wanted one, but because I made a tape. I did want one, but I made a tape and sent it out. And a couple of weeks later, I followed up the tape like you used to have to do. Followed up, and I talked to this voiceover agent, and this girl picked up the phone. She went, "Oh my God, are you American?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "We just lost our American. Can you come in and meet?" I went, "Yeah, sure." And I went in and met them, and they took me. They took me on. They sent me up for a job for a soda. And I remember I was doing a play, and we were in dress rehearsals. We were begin teching. And I went to the director and I said, I've got a voiceover commercial and I have to go and do it. And they said, where do you have to go? I said, I have to go to Paris. I said, they were recording in Paris. I said, I'm going to finish the tech tonight. I'm going to get a train to London. I'm going to get up in the morning. They're going to pick me up. They're going to take me to the airport. They're going to fly me to Paris. From in the morning at 10 o'clock, I'm going to do the voice recording. I will be done by 1. I will get on a plane back. I will get on a train. I will come back to Birmingham. I will be here tomorrow night for the dress rehearsal. I said, but you've got to let me do this because it's going to be money.
Yeah.
I don't know how much money, but it's money, and I can't just not do it. And so he said, okay. And I did that, and I went. And I remember, like, forgot about it because it never aired. I never saw it, and it, but it did run. I just never saw it. And I remember the next spring, I was in a point where I was going, I've got to buy this software for my computer because I need this software that's going to make the computer run well. So it was about 70 pounds. And I said, well, I can either buy the software or I can buy food. And I went, look, I'll buy the software. It wasn't that bad, but I said, I'll live on apples and cheese for a week. I'll just, it's fine. And I was going out with my agent. I said, you can buy me lunch today because I don't have any money. And they went, oh, yeah, we just got a check-in for you. And I went, oh, really? And they read off 4 numbers. And I went, okay, that's going to pay for about 2/3 of the software, because they say, 46.25. And I'm thinking 46 pounds and 25 pence. That'll pay for 2/3 of the software. And then he said 39. And I went, well, is it 25 or 39? Not that 14p is going to make that much difference. But he said, no, 46, 25, 39. And I went, 4,000? And I couldn't even get my head around it. I couldn't understand it.
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden I had money.
Right.
I could pay the rent. I could buy food. I could go on vacation, just a little bit. You didn't want to do a lot. I mean, the thing I used to do, because once I started doing voiceovers, it wasn't like I was making an enormous amount of money.
But
I
you
was
could
making
live.
a little bit more. The first year I did voiceovers, I made over 2 times what I made the previous year from voiceovers alone. And then I was still doing theater but I started turning jobs down.
Yeah.
I would turn work down. I spent almost a year at the National because I could turn work in the region down. I would say, I don't want to go to Glasgow and do a play. I don't want to go to Sheffield and do a play. I need to stay in London so I can be doing these voiceovers. And then I would get a job at the National.
Yeah.
And, I did Death of a Salesman, and Death of a Salesman led to the play in the West End, the first play I did in the West End, which led to The Mummy,
That led to The Mummy?
All of them did. I was doing,
okay, wait. You got to stop right there.
Yeah.
Oh, this is going to be good. All right. So we've been talking now for 42 minutes, and usually my episodes are about this long. And so that means that.
Such a mistake to get me on.
No. It's the best. So that means that we are going to have 2 episodes with Corey Johnson, and we are going to wrap this one up, and we're going to do a second episode. So at the end of these episodes, we usually do a segment called DocuView Deja Vu.
DocuView Deja Vu.
DocuView Deja Vu. That means that we bring a documentary that we want people to watch, and we each give a recommendation. Now, I'm going to give a recommendation that's not necessarily a documentary, but I want people to watch it because it is a historical drama. So kind of the same. And it is September 5 because it is a movie that I watched last night that you were in that was amazing. I do think it was Emmy nominated or Oscar nominated.
The screenplay was, yes.
The screenplay was. It was amazing. So yes, my recommendation for everyone is September 5. You can watch it on Paramount Plus for free. You can watch it on Apple TV and I think Amazon Prime. So check it out, September 5. And so I want you to think about documentaries that you have been in, maybe that are your favorite, or documentaries you've narrated. And give me a couple of recommendations that you want people to watch.
I did a series in the fall called Strangest Things, which is about the strangest things on Earth, things you look at and you go, what the heck is this? And then they explain what it is they did or how they came about. That's a lot of fun. The ones that used to run, I did things on Jesus in the Bible that did a couple of seasons of that. It used to run every Easter. And my
Hmm.
mom would call me up and say, "Are you being paid for that?" I was saying, "No, I'm not being paid, Mom. They bought me out on just of it." Um, but there are a few. There's one
Where
about
can
her.
we find those? Where can we find those?
I don't know. I wish I did. They're History Channel, Smithsonian Channel, Discovery Channel, Nat Geo. I really, they're
Are
all over
they
the place.
are they listed on IMDb or only your
Yes. Yeah,
on?
they would be. Yeah, they would be on IMDb. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, great. Well,
Yeah.
people can look you up on IMDb as
They
Corey
can indeed.
Johnson.
Yep.
And is there any way that people, you're not on social media at all?
I don't really, yeah, social media, it was like computer science when I was in high school. I sort of missed it. It was just on the cusp of where I
Yeah.
was, and I didn't go there. And in the 80s, everybody was doing computer science.
All
I
right.
didn't do social media, and now I hate saying I'm too old, but it's a kid's thing. Social media is literally
Well,
for kids.
but you have decided that you're going to do your own podcast.
I
And so
am, yes.
with doing your own podcast, I hate to tell you, but you
Yes, it'll
are
have to
going,
be on social media. Yeah.
yeah, you are
Well,
going to
I'm
have to
gonna
do that.
I like a raindrop falling from the sky. I'm going to throw my podcast out into the ocean of the internet and see what happens.
Well, tell us what that podcast is going to be about.
Are you ready?
Yeah,
Are you comfortable?
I'm
Okay,
comfortable.
because you're gonna fall asleep. It's gonna be about golf.
Well, you love golf. I know
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
I know this. And
So
it's something you love to talk about. It's something that you love to play. I think you are quite a good golfer.
I have a
Um,
lot of fun. I have a lot of
yes.
fun playing
And
golf.
I know you're an athlete. So,
Well, yeah, I hate saying athlete because it makes it sound like I play a lot of I do very athletic things. I don't. I just sort of I have a good time. I enjoy playing golf and I like going out. It's a bit of exercise
and
and I
so
play with my
what is the,
brothers and it's fun.
yeah. And so what is the take of your golf podcast? Are you,
I just, I mean, I get these feeds in my email. I mean, if I look at them right now, I've probably got a few that I can talk about. Golf Galaxy, new Nike and Jordan shoes. There's some more about Ping putters, PGA golf camps, Newton Golf, clear out old gear, upgrade your game. So, I mean, I could look at that every day. Stuff is coming in, and I just go, today we're
you
going
have
to talk
something to
about the
say?
new putters. Today we're going to talk about clubs. Will new clubs help your game? Is it the club? Is it the shaft? Is it the grip? What is it that's going to make you do? And a driver. How important is it for you to hit the ball 300 yards if you don't know where the hell it's going to go? You know.
Oh, that's fun. So if anybody's listening here and you don't, you love more than just documentaries, love golf, have you released it yet, or is it just coming? You're figuring things out?
No, haven't released it. I'm still working. I'm still tweaking it. I have to
Well,
figure out. I've got to get a timer, a 10-minute timer, and I want to push a button and have 10 minutes on the clock and have it count down. And then I'm going to talk for 10 minutes, and then I'm going to hit the
that's
button, and I'm going to have a link to something else, and then I'm going to
not going to be possible. Not going to be possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right, everybody. So thank you so much for listening to Documentary First, where we believe everybody has a story to tell, and you can be the one to tell it. Bye, everybody.